Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. It's like when a popsicle melts and refreezes. That's what your blood is doing right now.
Yeah, pour my blood on your fucking waffles, folks. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Away From Her.
Yep.
It's Elder Cuck. Elder Cuck.
I couldn't just leave her here.
We understand it is very difficult to leave a loved one in a new environment for so long.
I don't think I like the place.
I think all we can aspire to in this situation is a little bit of grace.
I can't go away from you like this.
I need to stay here, and if you make it hard for me, I might cry so hard I'll never stop. I'd like to make love, and I'd like you to go.
Yeah, okay, so, first of all, Steven, our Patreon producer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Steven, for having us watch this Canadian film. I think Steven does. I don't want to call Steven
ferociously
out,
Canadian.
I think Steven's been giving us the Canadian stuff. I'm not certain about that.
Yeah,
there might be multiple Canadians.
We'll have to double check on this information.
Yeah, this movie is so Canadian that they ski to get around.
They just ski. They just go on daily ski walks. Cross country skiing.
Yeah. So this is
and that's not really skiing. You're just walking with skis on your feet. Come on.
Yeah, you're just shuffling. It's cross country shuffling. It's bullshit. Yeah. This is listen. So thank you, Steven. This is from Oscar winner Sarah Polley, who wrote and directed this film we are going to talk about. Sarah Polley won Best Screenplay, I believe, for Women Talking a few years back.
Last year, I think.
Yeah, she's also an actress. You might know her from the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Mm-hmm. Or Baron Munchausen.
Yeah, and a few others. We covered a movie with her.
Or also The Sweet Hereafter, because this movie is damn sure a movie made by somebody who was in The Sweet Hereafter.
Yes. This movie is mostly just getting kicked in the heart over and over again. I'll give a quick... So it stars an old guy, and then fucking Julie Christie, who is Laura in Dr. Zhivago, which I believe is stunt casting, because Dr. Zhivago is also a very bittersweet story about a love lost, about... it's not the exact same thing.
No.
Apparently, Sarah Polley pursued the shit out of Julie Christie for this role, so it really feels like stunt casting, because apparently she wore her down for a year.
Well, Julie Christie got an Oscar nom for this movie.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Good for her, because she earned it. It's about two elderly Canadians who have been together for a very long time. Which is very clear. And then one of them gets Alzheimer's, gets dementia. Julie Christie does, his wife. And they make the decision together because her life starts getting a little perilous. They're in this snowy, they're in a country house. And she's, they show her she puts the pan in the freezer. They show that she's slipping away.
I really like how efficiently it's done, because it's
very efficient.
The movie starts with it's already gotten so bad that they're talking about putting her in a home.
Yeah,
it's the first scene we see pretty much is them having dinner, and they're washing dishes afterwards, and she puts the pan in the freezer.
They do two things. It's very efficient, because they sit down and she goes, "When did the last time we washed that sweater?" And he says, "I don't know, the 50s," and they laugh. So you're like, okay, they've been together a long time, as evidenced by that line, and they're olds. And then she puts the pan in the freezer, and we're like, okay, got it, And
Could
she
be one of
doesn't
those movies.
Right, and there's this moment, and I guess we're getting into it too, but there's a moment where she looks at him and you can't tell if she knows she did it or not. And then she leaves. And I just want to flag that now because that's going to be a theme of the movie a little bit, because so he brings her to this, they decide to go to this center for
It's a retirement
olds.
home.
A retirement home, that's the word I was thinking of. And they have different tiers. Like they have the floor that she'll be on, and then there's like the floor when they've really lost it, which is like this looming threat, like the second floor. And the retirement home has this policy that's very sketchy, where they say like, okay, well, if you leave her here, you have to not visit for a month. It's to help them settle in. And so I would have said, no, we're not going here.
There's
but
a number
whatever.
there's a number of points in this movie where I would have ruthlessly sued this retirement
Yes.
home into oblivion.
Yeah, the retirement home is the
for,
villain.
Just wild negligence.
Absolutely. This is kind of the story about the worst retirement home. So they agree to it, and then he leaves her there. He comes back in a month, and she's basically forgotten him. Not only has she forgotten him, but she is starting up a sweet relationship with another man there. A man who's in a wheelchair, who can't really talk. She's taking care of him. It should be noted that on their way to the retirement home originally, she casually brings up that like 20 years ago, he absolutely fucked one of his students.
Apparently
And
several.
so like several. So like it's perfect.
We get the hint that it escalated with one of the students to the point where she killed herself.
Right. And so she's just sort of like, yeah, I didn't forget that shit, motherfucker.
Yeah, that memory's not leaving me, thank
Yeah.
goodness.
I
All
put-
the
yeah, I put
good
a-
ones are leaving me.
Right. I put a pan in the fucking freezer, but I remember you fucking your
Thank
students.
God I remember this tragic betrayal every day.
Yeah. You fucked your student into oblivion. And so there's this question of, is she doing this to hurt him? Or that's what he thinks. And there's this question of like, does she really know? Does she know who he is, what's going on? And so she treats him like a guest. And it's this very kind of sad story of him trying to win back his wife a little bit, who is now like has the, is really into this other guy.
Well, it's more than that.
and
It's
has forgotten him.
Yeah, she's transferred all of that longing that you would expect to be between a married couple who's been married for 45 years.
Yes.
She just transfers it over onto this new guy, who is the mayor from Batman Returns.
Yeah, that's worth noting.
Worth
That
noting.
is in
Anyway.
fact the mayor from Batman Returns. Weird fucking role, but yeah. And so it's this fucking sad ass story of him visiting the wife of this guy, and it's sort of intercut with this, talking it out of like, your husband and my wife are now having a relationship, and they have fucking forgot us, and then this woman decides to take her husband out. So then he's dealing with his wife, who still doesn't remember him, mourning the loss of this man who she's put this entire relationship on. So she's just sad. And like, again, dementia. This is a deeply fucking sad movie if you haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. It's just an exercise in heartbreak. Every scene
Yes.
is getting your heart broken over and over again.
Exactly. That's what it is. And it's just like, and we're not like, there's other people in this home who aren't being visited. They're really showing us like, yeah, this is what it's like. And it sucks. And then in what is the bittersweet moment is first he fucks the wife of the other guy.
Yeah, who
which
is
was
Olympia
like,
Dukakis.
Yes, who is absolutely Olivia Dukakis.
Olympia. But yep.
Olympia, where it's like for good measure, it feels like. I mean, they just need people. Like it's they don't like each other.
We'll get into it, but
Yeah.
there's a reason why they do it.
Well, yeah. But and then he brings her husband back to the home because his wife starts declining in health.
Right.
Because
She's so depressed over missing this dude who I guess she believes is her husband now. Or
Yeah.
it's not clear that she believes that, but it's clear that she's transferred all of the affection that you would think she should be feeling for her husband onto this man.
Right. And it made her feel better. She had someone to take care of.
Yep.
So the idea is he loves his wife so much that he's going to let her go because it makes her better to care for this man that she, thinks she has a relationship.
Because it makes her happy.
Exactly. So it's the last scene is basically he brings him there. He meets her one last time. It's implied one last time. I don't know. I'm sure he visits her again, but she remembers him briefly, fleetingly. And that's the fucking end of the movie. And then everybody's sad. Yep. I was sad.
Yeah.
It's a sad ass movie.
It's pretty damn devastating.
Yeah. It really is. And
we haven't gone over it yet. How'd you feel about this movie, Dave? How'd you like it?
I mean, this is tough. This is a good movie. It's extremely well performed, extremely well made. Weirdly, it rushed by, like it moved for me. I don't know why that was the case, but it flew by. But that said, like, I wasn't really in the mood to be sad. It's just a very heartbreaking movie. That's very, like, I can't think of when I would ever feel like watching this movie, why I would ever watch it again, why I would have watched it in the first place.
It's one of the cruelest movies like this I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think it's obviously the performances are great. I mean, Julie Christie got an Oscar nom. The lead actor is an actor named Gordon Pinsent. And he's very, very good. Olympia Dukakis is great. Even like Wendy Crewson, who plays like the head of the retirement home. I believe she's from Law and Order, right? The Santa Claus. I'm sorry, she's from the Santa Claus. Right. Even she is good. Like as this weirdly. Just cold. Like the retirement community starts out as this inviting place and then becomes very cold and like, I mean, we'll talk about that, but all the performances are great. It's very well made. They do some cool things with the visuals to evoke the theme of like dementia and Alzheimer's and memory loss. Like, the continued images of the snow. Like the first thing we see is them doing their skiing hike through the snow. And it's very pointed because they can see their tracks extending all the way in front of them, and we can see their tracks extending all the way behind them because this is the route they go every day, and they can clearly see all the basically the memories. Essentially, it's like
right.
Symbolizes the timeline of their lives together, basically.
Right.
And the snow is a repeated image for that, like the fleeting nature of memory, and then they get into this whole theme of where the husband's wondering if that's really all love is. He says it seems very superficial here at the end because it was all based on her remembering who I am, and she doesn't. So all of it gets these really profound, bittersweet, crushing themes about loss and life and what it means to lose somebody you love, both in like, I guess possibly the worst way, because they're not really gone, but yet they are. And like Julie Christie's character keeps repeating that, where she's like, I'm not gone yet, but I am going. Like she keeps reminding him in the first half of the movie before he drops her off at the retirement home that like, there's nothing that's going to stop this. This is happening. I will be gone soon.
Yes.
And it's just, man, it's not saccharine at all. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. I mean, there's a bit of fantasticalness in how agreeable Olympia Dukakis is to this whole arrangement at the end.
Yeah, and I would say it also requires, like you said, a very suable retirement home.
Right, just a completely criminal retirement home. But like, other than that, it presents like it's sort of like a thought experiment. It's like, what if this happened? What if you dropped a loved one off at a retirement home, and not only did they not remember you, but they had decided that somebody else at the home was you, and so that's it. You can't ever participate in their hospice or the rest of their lives. Really, you can't really participate. So it's a very well made movie. It's like it's like a really good song that just it's so sad you can't listen to it.
Yeah, that's
it's like Fields of Gold, the movie, Dave.
Right. That's the hit against this movie, and it's such a funny hit where it's like if someone said, "Do you like this movie?" It's like, no.
It's like
it devastated me.
To be cheeky,
why would I like this movie? Why would I be watching this movie? Like, yeah, I love this.
Let's settle in for Away From Her. To be a little cheeky, this is basically like The Notebook if they were both fucking other people.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if James Garner was reading to her.
Yeah. This is also, you know what?
She's married another man at the retirement home.
It's also very similar to Eternal Sunshine, which is, I would say, a similar idea but more fun. Because it has cool
Well, it's more
sci-fi.
hopeful because, and also
it's more hopeful.
Eternal Sunshine is about a much more common, it's about a breakup.
Right.
It's about a thing that we all go through. And you're right, it is about like, is this whole period of my life now sacrificed?
It's also more optimistic about the question, what is love? Is love just your memories? Can it be erased? Of course, in Eternal Sunshine, they imply, no, it's more than that. They are drawn to each other afterwards. Yeah, but this one kind of doesn't answer that entirely. It implies of like, it can be. Your brain can just choose to love this other guy.
It doesn't answer it entirely.
No, it doesn't.
There's a quick line. There's a line that Olympia Dukakis says at one point where she says, I think you have to decide to be happy. Like I always, and she categorizes people of two different ways. So like people who are always angry that life didn't turn out the way that they wanted, or people who just let it go basically and decide, well, this is the situation I'm in. There's not too much I can do about it. So let's just try to find the silver lining here. Let's just try to be happy with the situation that we're in.
Yeah. I want to talk about that in regards to the corrupt retirement home.
Sure.
Because that is what they're doing. So the idea is there's this policy, like I said, that there's a month no visitors for a month. And again, they like accept that way easier than I would because it's very clear what they're doing. And the nurse, who I love the nurse in this, but like she later kind of says it where she's like, I don't think it's easier on the old people. I think it's easier on the staff. I think they do that because it makes it easier for them. There's a scene where he's on the second floor and there's music playing and he's like, who picked the music? And you realize like no one did. The staff picked the music, right? Mm-hmm. Because these people are so far gone, we're now catering to the staff and not the people there. And that's a good like I think a quick way of showing like what it means to be so far gone that you've lost your decision making entirely.
You have barely any consideration.
Right. And at that point, it's just the people taking care of you have more consideration. So this decision was clearly that, where it's like, because ultimately, like, and they pick a good place for it, because I don't know about you, I've been in a few retirement homes, not personally, but I've had grandparents who I had to watch go through this.
I did hospice care for my mother, yeah.
Right. And they're these weird liminal spaces because they're like, people live here, but it's a hospital. It has a dorm, it has a community vibe, but it's also like, there's nurses everywhere and there's and it's so like it's just this and it's always like in a weird building that's like could have been office buildings at one point, you know what I mean, where it's like this isn't really, depending on the type of place you go, there's some really like weird ones, and it's like
it's creating the illusion of home in an institution. Like it's never right. It's unmistakably an institution.
Exactly. And so like I think these people here, like they have to deal with the fact that this is their new reality, right? And so like they don't want these people to think about the life they had. That's what it ultimately comes down to. It's better if she forgets that she had a different life than this, so she can accept this new reality. Basically what you're saying, she says in it, where it's like people have to choose to be happy.
And Julie Christie even says that to him, yeah. She's
Yeah,
like,
and
you
so-
need to leave now, because the longer we draw this goodbye out, the harder it's going to be, and I'm the one who has to stay here for the rest of my life.
Right. So it's implied that she knows what's going to happen when she agrees to this month-long thing. She knows that she's kind of doing this to herself.
Because when the day finally arrives and they're getting in the car and driving there and checking her in, at each stage of it, he stops and is begging her, please don't do this.
Right, and she brought up his affair, so it's like she's almost trying to be mad at him so she can do this. Again, very Eternal Sunshine. She's making the choice to basically erase him or possibly erase him. And then when he keeps starting to remind her, saying like, I'm your husband and stuff, she's saying like, stop it, don't do this. Because you can tell like she sort of remembers, but she doesn't want to. The whole point is she does not want to. She knows that it's that of course this piles on the tragedy.
Yeah.
Her knowledge of like, I don't get that life anymore. So I have to find the happiness I can that's right in front of me. And this man's here with me.
And
you just come and visit.
Yeah, he's kind of he's essentially a blank slate for her. We get the impression, because first of all, she says in that scene where she's like, please don't do this. She also says, Aubrey doesn't confuse me.
Yes.
So she doesn't get the conflicting feelings in her mind about, like you said, oh, I miss my old life. But also we know she still remembers that huge betrayal that her husband put her through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He has. That's the thing. Marriages are complicated, right? Is when you're married to someone for 50, 60, 70 years or however long, there's good and bad. And so all those memories are mixed together in this big fucking pile where, the goal is for the good to be more than the bad. And so it's implied that like it's kind of a wash. It's hard to tell. Like once you realize that their marriage wasn't perfect and that they moved out into the country because he fucked up so bad.
Because he could not stop fucking his students.
Right. Then you think like, okay, well, it's been good recently, but it probably wasn't good earlier. And so like it's so complex, the emotions, that she'd rather pretend, because she also pretends this other guy is someone she knew from the past.
We think it's not clear.
It's unclear. Yeah.
She says like, oh, it turns out I knew him from years and years ago. He used to work at this hardware store when I was over the summers. And he asks Olympia Dukakis about that later. And she's like, I don't know. I never heard anything about that. Of course, I didn't know him. I didn't grow up here during that time. So maybe it's true.
Right. And so so it makes sense why she would do this. There's also there's a line in this, sometimes there's something delicious in oblivion, which again, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's kind of saying the same thing, right? Is there something great in not remembering, and just being in the moment. Again, they really feel like similar films, just crafted different ways.
It really hits it in the scene where she goes on her walk by herself. And we don't know why she's done it. Why she's by herself. It seems weird that she should be. And she's looking at the trail in front of her and the trail behind her, and she leaves the trail. She goes off into the woods and lays down in the snow and makes like a snow angel and is happy. And then time passes and we see the husband pulls up in his car and it's dark outside now, and she's just standing looking out over a bridge, and she doesn't even have her skis or anything with her anymore. Right. And he leans out and says, hello there. And she says, oh, hello. And then turns back to the bridge. So it seems like she doesn't remember who he is.
Yeah.
But like she broke away from that tether, basically, that symbolized by that track leading back to their house. She shed her memory of him and had a good time that day and was happy. And not afraid of not remembering. She had bliss in the ignorance of it. So it's from that point that she becomes firm about moving into the retirement home.
Yes, because there's an implication in this, and they're not. This movie certainly isn't being like, isn't it great to have dementia? But they're showing that aspect of it, which is like, if your memories start failing you, and you can either be in this constant state of frustration, or you could sort of let go. And once you don't have a choice, at least you're constantly living in the moment, right? Because that's what that means. ultimately, if you can't remember, if you can't hold on to the past, even the very immediate past, then you can at least enjoy the moment. That's I think what they're going for there, which is like, again, she has this happy relationship with this guy that she constantly sees. So she's always, because it gets to a point where even if he's visiting every day, it's going to get hazy even in that amount of time for her.
Yeah.
So like to have this constant there, always in the moment with her, like that ultimately is more valuable to her than her memories.
I think it's
like
less about what's more valuable and what's about less harmful.
Less harmful,
Like
yeah.
what's
that's a good way of putting it.
causing her more grief, what's causing her more sorrow. And I think that's like, it's, you know, it's the whole deciding to be happy. She's in the situation she's in, and I feel like the movie, yeah, like she could either cling to those memories of her past, which means also cling to this great big huge hurt that sort of dominated their lives for the past 20 years. Or she can let it all go and just cling to this dude, the mayor from Batman Returns, who can't speak.
Right.
Yeah, so she does the thing that's uncomplicated. She says he doesn't confuse me.
Yeah. She should have gone with Frank. Frank rules. Remember Frank?
Oh, Frank, the dude that does the play-by-play for the hockey game? That guy fucking rocks.
So this movie isn't without some comedy. There's one part where she just says, "What an ugly baby," really loudly, which was very funny in a doctor's office. But then one of the guys is clearly, one of the guys in the retirement home clearly was an ex-announcer, is the implication.
Oh, they tell us. They flat out tell us.
Oh, they tell us? Okay.
Yeah.
It's cute. They're watching the hockey game and he's narrating it like an announcer. And then our main character turns down the hockey game so we can all listen to Frank because Frank rules. And that's all he's doing all day. I love this because Frank is what, like, I'll be at this age. I'll be doing podcasts. You know what I mean? Where it's like when you do something for a very long time. Yeah. And it's seared in your head.
We're going to be doing Hypecast, Dave. We're going to be fucking Hypecasting.
Right.
Pooping in our diapers.
Recording a Hypecast with a plant, just to like talking to a plant, like it's you. Yeah, because that's what Frank represents. I feel like as an ex-workaholic, and I'm like, yeah, I get Frank. I understand Frank.
Yeah, I identify with Frank.
Yeah, and he's just constantly narrating, and then of course they do. I thought it was just it was much needed. It's like one of the worst moments when, like, I think his wife is going up to the second floor finally, and he's in the hallway. Frank walks by and he's narrating everything he sees, and then he just says, like, "And we're passing a man who's just having his heart broken." Just like,
you hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
Basically, is what he's saying.
Just a devastated man in the hallway. It's a very funny moment in a very sad fucking movie. So I appreciate it. I appreciated Frank.
Yeah,
he was a ray of
we
sunshine.
needed Frank. Yeah, we needed Frank.
Yeah, and I mean, there's old people fucking in this.
There's a lot of old people fucking. Yeah.
Yeah, they fuck to say goodbye. And then
there's transactional sex. Yeah, when he fucks Olympia Dukakis basically to convince her to let him take her husband back to the retirement home.
Yeah,
to see if it'll make his wife less sad.
Yeah, he pimps himself out so he can cuck himself to his wife.
He sure does, because that's how much he loves her.
It's a complicated situation.
It's a complicated. Marriage is complicated.
Right.
You've been married for like half a century and you're devoted to a person. It's like, yeah, what would you, like I said, it's the thought experiment nature of this film that's just like, man,
this stage is complicated. Like one of my grandparents, I lost my grandmother way earlier, and then my grandpa went to one of these retirement homes, and he talked about how, like, there's like dating and stuff. And he was like, I don't know. I was thinking of maybe getting back into it. And that's weird, right? Like, that's a weird thing to have to think about at that age.
I mean, it's not weird, but...
Well, no, it's more like the companionship stuff where it's like, it's a weird idea, right? Where it's all these people, and it's not like they have exes anymore. They have one huge relationship that they had. And it's like this stuff with him with Dukakis is like a little bit of that, where it's like they're kind of also like, it feels like companionship is still important, but it's like they're never going to get over the person in their lives. It's just a weird stage of life, romantically wise.
Again,
Where
it's people kind of making these sacrifices, just to secure what happiness they can, basically.
Right.
And it seems like the thing that makes that the husband has decided is going to make him happy is to make sure that his wife is happy.
Right.
Like he decides, I guess he's decided, in light of the big hurt, that's why it's there. That's why they keep bringing it up, that he owes it to her, basically.
Yeah. They're creating a situation where like they don't highlight as much the pain of being in one of these places. They almost make it like seem like it's better on the inside to some extent, because she at least gets to find this happiness, and his happiness is to just watch it.
I disagree, but I think they just I think it's done with a light touch.
It's done with a light touch, and it's not the main point of the movie.
Yeah,
like there's the part where the old ladies are hitting on him, and she's like, "You're a charmer, aren't you?" And then when he says he's taken, she's like, all the charmers are taken or dead.
Yeah, but then of course you see that same character in one of the very next scenes where it's everybody coming, all the families coming in for Christmas dinner, and her family is one of the first ones that leave, and you see over the montage as all the families are leaving, she's one of the people that never gets up from the table. She just sits there staring at her coffee, she's very sad.
It's bleak.
Yeah.
So it's this idea of like, again, it's like summer camp. They have to treat it that way in order to get by, right? Where it's like, we just have to like fuck and have fun with who we have.
Yeah.
And hopefully forget about this old life we used to have. So it is sad. It's definitely sad. Don't get me wrong.
And then of course,
like,
Wendy Crewson as the head of the facility is, man, almost she's like, so I'm trying to find the right word to describe her. Because when you first meet her, she has this officiousness that is comforting. Like she's so in charge. Like she's taking the husband through the tour. She brushes by the unpleasantness. Like everybody says hello to her. We see all the residents saying hello to her, and she exchanges very brief pleasantries with them.
Right, because they don't know any better with she's not mustache twirling villain.
No, she's just the dismissiveness of the unpleasantness of their retirement home. Like she dismisses all of it, and we, or like downplays it or minimizes it or like smooths it over for him. And in that initial scene,
she's selling it.
Right. We're grateful to her for doing that because we've just seen how difficult this is. We know how badly he's wounded doing this. But as the movie progresses and she maintains that level of dismissing anything that's unpleasant, so she never talks to him about what has clearly happened with his wife. And anytime he brushes up against maybe bringing up, hey, this is kind of fucked up that you guys allowed this to happen. Like, you've really made this a lot more complicated for both me and her, and also fucking Aubrey and his wife and their family. Like, what the fuck kind of place are you running here?
Yeah,
but she's such that, just moves through it so quickly, exchanging one or two words with people and just dismissing the unpleasantness. Like, like in the last scene when, like, he's standing outside of his wife's room and Aubrey's inside, and they're in this weeping embrace because Aubrey's wife has decided to take him out of their retirement home because of what's fucking happening. And she just comes up and is like, man, I wish his wife would get here. Is dragging this out. Like, the longer it drags out, the harder it's going to be for, like, she's not even acknowledging the fucking devastating thing that's happening here. She's just like, boy, I wish she'd hurry up and pick this dude up so we can get on with it. It's so cold.
Yeah, I think so. There's her and there's the nurse. And I think they kind of represent two sides of two sides of the same coin, essentially, which is that when you work in this industry, and I've talked to people, I have a friend who works in the ER. I know several nurses, where you work in an industry where you just sort of are casually hit with tragedy all the time. your brain has to do one of two things, right? It has to do one thing. It has to figure out how do you cope with that, right?
Yeah.
And you either cope with it by not seeing them as people anymore, or I don't fucking know, honestly, what your brain does for this, but I have seen it. The other nurse is basically like, she's patient. It's like they show this part where the guy's playing horseshoe and he throws it and then he just stands there and then she picks it up and says like, oh, here you go. Try to pick it up next time. Next time, just go pick it up. And then she talks to him. The guy throws the horseshoe and doesn't pick it up again. And she walks over and picks it up again for him. So she's showing this like very polite patience, right? Where it's like, it's her job to do this. Like she'd rather not have to pick up this horseshoe every fucking time, but she will, right? And like the way she talks to him when she's out like having a cigarette and talking to him, she talks to him like a human being. She talks about her like a human being, like about his wife. Like she recognizes that they're human beings and being compassionate while still having the understanding of like, this is what happens. Like she's probably seen versions of this a million times. So she's able to put up those shields to protect herself from fucking sobbing every night, while still maintaining a humanity. And it's clear that the woman running the place just doesn't have that in her. And so like, she's not a villain, but she's not good at her job.
She
shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, she's completely jettisoned her ability to be compassionate.
Yeah, and to think compassionately.
It's a very superficial compassion.
Right, that rules there in the first place for this reason, is that for her, it's all about ripping off the Band-Aid, which I can see. So I can see her thinking that's a compassionate argument, right? Like it's this idea, like you could argue that these two employees, they're the two main ones we deal with, represent those two philosophies, which is like the bliss of simply forgetting versus like, no, you can't, you simply can't do that. You know, like you have to reconcile with your past, etc. Where it's like for this woman running it, it's just, she's convinced herself it's more humane to do this, to rip off the Band-Aid, to let them forget and just be in this state of bliss and oblivion. Whereas like there's still a lot of pain there.
Right.
And it's ultimately just easier for her.
Yeah. There's a question there too that's never explicitly said, but obviously it's woven throughout is, do you have some sort of do you have an obligation to your loved ones in this situation?
Right,
like,
because
the ripping off the Band-Aid thing, it's such a great way to describe it, because to her it is like that. Like ripping off the Band-Aid is something you do when you're teaching somebody how to ride a bike, or like it's an obstacle that will soon be surmounted and in the past. This is not that. This is the final stage of these people's lives. This is the end for them. This is not a hurdle that they're going to overcome. This is it. Yeah. But it's not for her. So it's just completely, it's like so transparently just about her. But then it's woven into it, that idea. It's also attached to that idea that I was bringing up about, if you're in this situation, does like Julie Christie have an obligation to her husband at all? Like, do you have an obligation to your loved ones to take their pain and what they're going to go through into account when you do something like this? And that's a big question for like, assisted suicide and stuff like that. But
all right. Do you mean, does the husband have an obligation to Julie Christie?
No. Other way around.
Oh, really? Because I think that's the big question too, right? Which is simply,
we see him wrestle with what his obligation is to her, and it's less of obligation. It's like, it's how he feels about her. Like, he loves her. He fucked up. Like, he did a horrible betrayal. That's very difficult to forgive, but like, it's very clear that he is completely attached to her. He's completely devoted to her, but we don't ever get to see her point of view. But
it's more like this idea of like, so say you have a loved one who is in one of these retirement homes and has forgotten you. There's this very easy way to think of it, of going like, well, why even visit them? It's just hurting us, right? Like that feeling. But it's like, if you truly love someone, you just want to see them first of all. And then second of all, like him realizing like, okay, I'm going to see her. Does it matter that she sees me or like understands who I am? Like what does it mean to have love? Does love have to be
Does it need to be
does it have to go both ways? Yeah.
Does it need to be reciprocated?
Exactly.
Especially at this stage. I mean, the answer before would be yes, it does. But like at this stage in this situation, do I need that right now? Yeah.
Right. And so it's like he's basically fulfilling his side of this love that they have.
Yeah. You see him like accept each stage of it. Like it's like at first he does leave, but then he comes back. And then it's like, and then we have the scene where it's like, well, I just want to sit here and watch. Like, I know she's not paying any attention to me, but I just like to look at her and see that she's okay. And then he leaves even like, it doesn't matter that she knows who I am. No, it doesn't. And then he leaves that behind when he's like, well, I want to read to her, even though it's like breaking my heart. He is trying to do everything he can to make her feel better and be mobile after Aubrey gets moved out. So it's like we see him shed every layer of that basically as the movie progresses.
It's the same. It's the same relationship that if a guy did this in his 30s with someone he only been together for 6 months would land him in jail, right? Different type of one-sided love, but him being like, I just want to show up and watch her for a while.
Yeah,
I just want to see her from afar.
You know what I mean? But yeah.
No, but that's what it is. Like that's what's funny about it is he's stalking her essentially. It's one-sided, but it's not like it is bad or something. It's basically how we have cats. They don't love us, but we love them. You know, we just like
keep
have
them captive.
We these giant ants in our house that we're like, I don't care that there's nothing going on. There's nothing, they don't care for us, but I love them and I'll feed them and take care of them. Like it's just, it's a really good, like a thought experiment, like we said, like about what it means to love someone and what conditions like there are. Like if you truly love someone in this situation, you have to love them in a way where they're not going to love you back. You're not going to get that love back from them. And that is, tragic. It's fucking devastating, you know?
What do you think about the ending? Do you think he goes through with his plan to wheel Aubrey in there? Or do you think he's like, well, she remembers me now. Maybe would bringing Aubrey in at this moment be too devastating of a confusion for her?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, they really, like the ending really is surprisingly ambiguous.
Yeah. I sort of assumed he went through with it because I think ultimately it's what she's been saying throughout, which is like, I'm going to be gone.
Yeah, and it seems as though he's made his peace with it at that point.
Yeah, and the movie makes the case for that ultimately, which is that like it's better in this case to simply forget and live in the moment for her. Like that's what's going to help her. Again, it's the opposite of Eternal Sunshine, which in this case, like, you know, if they were young, that'd be one thing. In this case, it's like, no, it's not, doesn't change their past, you know? It's really about like, what does she need right now? And that love that she has for him, ultimately, while imprinted on another guy, is still like, it's the same love, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just directed in the wrong place to some fucking weirdo from the mirror.
Just some fucking guy.
Yeah, we don't know anything about him.
Don't know anything about him.
We know that he
invested his money poorly.
He drives him to right. He drives him to cuck his wife. They're just like silent. That was such an awkward fucking drive.
He can't speak, so
yeah. I wanted him just reach over and like flick the guy's ear or something.
Yeah.
Just like, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Now go fuck my wife. Get in there.
Fucking dirtbag.
You get in there and you fuck my wife or I'll come for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never know what this other guy's deal is. It's implied that like whenever he comes visits, he like gets needier. It's sort of implied.
Oh yeah,
that he like wants her attention.
Oh, he's definitely competing for her attention with him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like that's.
But
pretty
there's
clear.
you don't know how much he knows. You
Right,
know, he
it's-
could
right.
just be a complete dirtbag of like, yeah, this is my deal. This is what I do. I find them old broads with no memories. I tell them I'm their ex-lover. And I get in there. Like, we don't know. We don't know what this guy's up to. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Shifty fucking mayor.
When he stood by helpless as a baby.
Yeah.
He's gonna
that's
lose.
true.
He's gonna lose a runoff to Oswald Cobblepot.
Yeah, he will. He does, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't. He comes close.
He comes close. Way too close. Like, sorry, I know this isn't about that movie, but like that should be a sign, right? When you're like
when you almost
I
lose
almost
a
lost to
fucking
a-
special election to Oswald Cobblepot.
to a guy named the Penguin who like tried to kill all the babies. Like that means I probably need to do better.
I got an image problem.
Yeah, just a bit. People saw this guy and said, "Well, why not?"
What about the hideous penguin man
Yeah.
from the sewer?
Can't do worse. I mean, it's true. Like, he's got a Batman running around. He's got that Joker. Like, he did not do a good job.
He hasn't done well.
He was a
He hasn't
Batman.
done well.
Yeah.
It's a different mayor from the first one. The mayor in the first one was a really old guy.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, because
Yeah, I don't think
he
that
was
guy
not
got
doing good.
reelected. Or the Joker killed him, one of the two. Anyway,
Who can say?
we're pretty far afield. I think, any final thoughts on Away From Her?
Listen, this is a very good movie. I don't know when anybody would watch this. I just don't. If you like sad movies, I guess there are genre people, right, who watch sad movies, who love
Sure, yeah.
this shit. So if you like shit like The Notebook and you want to be devastated, but it's also bittersweet. Like it's not just kicking you while you're down. Like it's not just tragedy porn. And what I mean by that is like it has something to say and it's trying to be more bittersweet, but boy is it fucking bitter. It's very sad and
It feels cruel in a lot of places.
it feels cruel, but it's not unrealistically cruel. I would say.
No, it's not outsized or anything.
No, it's like
It's
That's the
a
thing.
very humble cruelty, Dave.
yeah. A movie about a retirement home in general is always going to be some element of cruel, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's like, yeah, let's take a peek and see what's going on in the retirement home. Oh, okay, not good things. Great.
Oh, all bad things. Okay.
Yeah. It's the fucking Green Mile. They're all just on death row, just sitting there, just being old and fucking.
Yeah, I mean that part's not so bad.
The fucking again. If you like old people fucking, this movie's for you. There's that. It has that.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
check
there's
that
no.
out.
To be clear, there aren't any sex scenes. There's just old people laying under blankets having just fucked.
Yeah, but when do you get like that for someone who's into old people fucking? That's gold, right?
That's true. That's pretty thrilling. So yeah, you should check
Yeah,
this
that's
out.
more than you knew normally.
Let's wrap this up, Dave. I don't know what we're doing.
All right. Well, I have no other final thoughts. I guess it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's just hard to watch.
Papery sound of old sex.
So thank you, Stephen, for that.
Thank you.
For Elder Cuck, the movie. This was through our Patreon.
The
Stephen
Cucked Notebook.
did this. Yeah.
The Cuck Book.
The Cuck Book. Yeah, that's what it's called. This is through our Patreon. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. GAMEFULLY unemployed. For $5 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons as well. And there's all sorts of things on there. So check it out. Check out our Discord as well. Great community.
Yeah, we have lots of lovely tiers on our Patreon.
Yeah.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your
old balls on that.
slap your old balls peepers onto that. I was going to say
Yeah.
cucked peepers, but that's not. Shouldn't say that. That's not a way
Yeah.
to say it.
Sorry
I don't.
to
Want, I
say
don't.
it.
That's not the thought I want to leave you all with. Old balls.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Old balls. Old balls rambling off podcast plugs in an old folks home like
Yeah.
Frank.
Staring at a wall.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely. I'll be able to do the Patreon fucking plug when I'm old.
Oh yeah, no, that's gonna definitely be like the last thing I say
Yeah,
as my brain dies.
yeah.
All right.
Some nurse is just like, I guess I should check out his Patreon.
Check out his Patreon.